Gold's going to 4,000. Silver, $52 per ounce. There, I had to say it. Who the heck is Jeremy Grantham? And what does he have to say about the economy, about the market? And there's something hidden in what he's talking about the metals, a little nugget of information for us. We need to talk about Mr. Jeremy Grantham. And guess what is our favorite subject? Doom and gloom. Ho, ho, ho. Welcome to Ron's Basement, the home of doom and gloom. 2023 is not looking too pretty for a lot of the sectors in the market, but I think Jeremy thinks that it could look real good for the price of gold, the price of silver, and by default, the price of the precious metal mining stocks. Let's dig in right now. Oh, the gurus and their predictions. You know what? You're a guru too. I'm going to start calling you Uru. Uru the guru. Nonetheless, who's Jeremy Grantham? He just started an investment company that now manages over $65 billion in assets, and he has some scary things to say about what's heading our way in the world. So, Mr. Guru, do you think we're in a bubble? I think we're in a bubble, and Jeremy Grantham points out that he believes we are in the process of a bubble bursting right now. He says the bubbles come around like every 20 years or so, and that makes sense to us, right? It seems like, the 2000 tech bubble burst, the 1929 market crash, the Nifty 50. If you haven't heard about them, look that up. That was in the 1970s. I was only 2 years old and just barely followed the markets at that time, but nonetheless, that makes sense to us, right? These bubbles, they don't happen like every year, every 5 years. There's like cycles that we go through. And he points out that one of the key fundamental factors that's always in place is crazy investor behavior. And this time, where was the crazy investor behavior? What do you think? Crypto? Well, of course, right? And now we've seen the bubble in crypto pretty much burst over the last year. And that's exactly how Jeremy says these things play out. And it kind of feels that way, right? Like first, the high flyers, the cryptos. Remember the meme stocks from a couple years ago? AMC and all that craziness that was going on. Those take a dive first, and then it takes some time for the rest of the market to also take a dive. And doesn't it feel like that's going on right now? That now we've got the general markets starting to pull back, the big tech companies, right? The FANG stocks, Microsoft, Facebook. I just read this morning, Amazon stock is down 50% for the year. Don't you worry, I haven't forgot. We're going to talk about 4,000 gold and $52 silver, but let's talk about this bubble for a little bit longer. He points out, and I don't know how you feel about this, but that right now is similar to the 2000s in a lot of ways because we've got these high-flying tech stocks that have burst. We still have stocks that are overpriced on many metrics. Things that happened over the last year were the result of over-exuberant retail investors, and we're coming off a long period of, you guessed it, money printing. But things are also similar to how things set up in the 1970s. Because just like back then, right now, we have high inflation. You know that. You've been to the grocery store, gas station, and tried to rent an apartment or buy a house. Things are priced out of control. But we also have high interest rates. We're coming out of a period of high liquidity into a period of low liquidity, and that does not mean good things for the economy or the overall markets. But what's even more scary for us now, and this is where we start to talk about metals, is that right now we're in a situation where there is a commodity shortage in the world. The world has not invested in new mines, new production of commodities, and we are facing a commodity shortage like we haven't faced ever. As a matter of fact, the real cost of most commodities has gone up by 3 times since 2002. And prior to that, the real cost of commodities had gone down, down, down. So the world is in a precarious situation with high inflation, high interest rates, but we also have a commodity shortage. We know from being gold and silver investors, right, that there's been very little investment in new mines, new exploration in the silver sector, in the gold sector, and that's resulting in shrinking and shrinking reserve bases of the big miners. And what does that mean? Less supply, right? And demand going up. There's a big gap. We know that from silver alone. From 2022 numbers, it's projected that there will be 200 million more ounces of silver demanded than the world will be able to supply. That spells $4,000 gold, and you know what? Not $52 silver. We're going to go with, what do you say? $53.50 silver. Jeremy has more fascinating things to talk about, and we're going to get to that after I tell you, yes, you, thank you for joining me here in the basement. You're always welcome here. Every day I put out a video. You got a new friend. You're welcome here. We are an elite crowd. We need to stick together, but right now it's just me and you. If you enjoy this, please subscribe. Give the video a thumbs up. Now let's get back to these interesting points Jeremy Grantham brought up. Would you please consider making a baby today? If you need help on how to do that, you'll need to watch another YouTube video. There's only so much I can fit into this episode. Now, what does that have to do with anything? The world, the metals prices. It has a lot to do with it because we got a shortage, guys, of these babies. The world is not producing enough babies. That is resulting in a labor shortage. That is driving up the cost of labor. That is driving up inflation. That is creating potential havoc in the world. We got shortages of natural resources. We've got shortages of labor. Doesn't that sound inflationary? Isn't that good for precious metals? Now, next, Mr. Grantham moves on to some points where he kind of really holds no punches. This is some tough stuff, but I'll be curious to see what you think about it. I know that I agree with him on these matters. He talks about how there's this big push, right? We hear about it all the time. The world is going green. The world is going electric. But there's no metals in place to provide what's needed for the world to go electric. And that will drive up the price of all the metals. Now, he also really takes some big hits at the United States. He talks about how the productivity level in the United States is down. The savings rate in the United States is down. That when you look at the real statistics, that the number of new small businesses being created is down. Because why? Because people don't have the money. And he goes on to point out that one of the big reasons why is because of the crazy level of wealth distribution in this country, right? The top 1%, the top 10% have so much of the money. It's become so, guys, it has gone crazy. They don't talk about this on Good Morning America or CNN because those top 1% that have all the money now, they control the media. They don't want you to know. But when you look at the statistics, we have never in the history of the world had such a perverted level of wealth distribution as we have now here in the United States. And that is starting to hurt things. It's like the snake eating its own tail. You know, these wealthy people have kind of perverted the system to a point where now they're almost going to start hurting themselves because the people that actually have to work don't even have the money to start new businesses, the money to start new enterprises. You want to hear a couple interesting examples of this wealth inequality? Mr. Grantham points out that in 1965, the average CEO made 40 times what the average worker made. Here in the United States of America now, the average CEO makes 300 to 400 times what the average worker makes. He also points out that the USA is dead last in inequality within the developed world. Dead last. Okay, this is a big, big problem here in the United States of America that nobody's talking about it. Minimum wage in the United States is half of what it was in the 1960s when you factor in inflation. Here's the analogy I always like to use. Let's say I invite you over to the house here to play poker. I'm having some buddies over. We're going to play some poker. You show up. You've got $100. The 8 other guys that show up have $100. We sit down at the poker table, and I pull out $100,000. And that's what I'm going to play with. You guys all look at each other. You're like, we're not going to play with you. There's no way. This is not. We give up. We quit. We're done. And that's about where things are getting here in the United States. You've got huge swaths of the economy, people, the population that can't make it. They're getting to the point where they're saying, you know what? I'm done. You're hearing about all these people just quitting their jobs, like the statistics of men in their 50s that are like, I give up, I'm done. And it doesn't really surprise us, right? And we can't blame the Democrats or the Republicans. Actually, we can blame them both, because under both of their watches, this system has been allowed to grow to where it is today. And if you want to hear a little more soapbox, hang with me, because I want to talk about the healthcare system in this country. This is not Jeremy Grantham. This is me. I think the healthcare system in the United States is the shining star of screwed up and what's wrong with our country. We pay more per person for health care in this country than anywhere else in the developed world, and our quality is ranked never in the top 10. We have so many people that are spending their entire day just talking back and forth with insurance companies and this and that. It's become all about profit and not about the patients and the average person, right? I'm telling you from a personal experience, I don't know how you're dealing with this, but trying to raise a family and get health insurance in this country, it is an utter crazy joke and just so screwed up that the whole thing needs to be thrown away and started over without this massive profit incentive for the hospital chains, for the insurance companies, for the gosh darn pharmaceutical industry. Now I'm done preaching, but I do believe the healthcare system in this country is mega screwed up. And I wonder how, just like the tax code and everything else, because the powerful, wealthy lobbyists were able to get the system rigged up to their liking so that their interest makes as much profit as possible. That's the bottom line. Thanks for watching. Sorry I went off on a little soapbox, but I do feel very passionate about that. Let me know how you think about it. I think if you're in a situation where you're getting your health care provided by the government or provided by whatever, you don't worry about it. But when you're out there fighting, trying to make a living and pay for health insurance in this country, it's ridiculous. Have a great day. I really will shut up now, but I will look forward to seeing you, yes, you, next time.